B, dissemblance or duplicity. Moral consciousness will now show how it is not really serious about its postulates, which are involved in contradiction and prove to be untenable. It will show this by dissembling or shifting from one position to its opposite. A main point is that if the postulated harmony ever came about, e.g., that of morality in nature, it would spell the end of morality. The goal of morality being that there be no morality. Here are a few examples of this shifting. 1. Hegel takes up as the first position, to be subsequently abandoned or displaced, the postulate of the harmony of morality and nature. It is assumed that there is an actual moral consciousness, as this is the basic premise of morality. It means simply that the moral life is a valid lifestyle, or that there is a consciousness that is pursuing morality as a real possibility, actively realizing it in the world. Again, the reason why the harmony of morality and nature has to be postulated in the first place is that in the present is found only the opposition or non-conformity of natural to moral law. If it were not postulated, if it were not a possibility, it would be ridiculous to command the moral subject to bring it about. Thus, the first position is that the harmony of morality and nature is not present, but is to be postulated. For if the harmony were present, moral action would be made superfluous. However, Hegel goes on to say, no sooner is this position placed than it is immediately displaced by its diametric opposite. For moral consciousness is primarily an active one, and its activity is what constitutes its actuality. But its activity is nothing other than the production of an actuality determined by its moral purpose, i.e., the production of the harmony of morality and nature itself. Hence, quote, the action thus as a fact fulfills directly what was asserted could not take place at all, fulfills what was to be merely a postulate and to lie in the beyond, end quote. 2. Moral consciousness's present position is that it is serious about action and its ability to actualize morality. But Hegel is quick to point out that it is not even serious about this position, and immediately proceeds to displace it by positing something else as its essence. For the final end of morality, Kant's highest good, is nothing short of the entire world, the reign of virtue on earth, which is the essence and what is to count. But in the face of the immensity of this final purpose, the individual's contingent and isolated deed just performed becomes insignificant and reduced to nothingness. And as Hegel says, quote, because the universal best ought to be carried out, nothing good has been done, end quote. Thus, whereas it was previously held that moral action is of significance, it is now held that action, qua individual action, before the task of realizing the highest good, is of no value and utterly devoid of significance. On the other hand, the concept of morality itself is very explicit with respect to the necessity of action in that it obliges us to realize duty in the whole of nature so that moral law may become one with natural law, so that universal duty, i.e. the thought of duty, may become concrete or actual duty. Thus, moral consciousness is not completely serious about the dichotomy of natural and moral law. Furthermore, in the concept of the highest good, virtue combined with proportionate happiness is implied the absolute harmony of morality and reality as a whole, nature plus the sensuous will, the coincidence of moral law and natural law. Hegel then poses the fateful question: what would ever happen if this goal were reached, if this harmony were present? The answer is direct and devastating. Moral action would cease, and morality be no longer. This would be so because moral action, as defined by Kant, can only take place so long as there exists an opposition, a non-moral element that is to be cancelled or moralized as the result of an action. Hence, the absolute irony here is that the supreme goal of moral action is that there be no moral action. In Hegel's words, quote, "Because moral action is the absolute purpose is that moral action does not take place at all," end quote. 3. The harmony of morality and sensibility, the nature within, what is equivalent to virtue, must also be postulated, for if it existed, moral action would cease. Moral consciousness thus takes up a hostile or negative attitude towards sensibility, which is to be cancelled or made to conform to the moral law. This attitude is taken because the duty's pure purpose is opposed to the impure purposes of impulses and inclinations. However, this negative attitude towards sensibility is directly displaced, for sensibility is essential to moral action. Without it, as the mediating element between pure purpose, duty, and reality, moral consciousness cannot act. Thus, the latter cannot wish to do away with them, for action requires particular purposes. Hence, sensibility must retain its particular purposes opposed to pure duty. And because morality has proved to be unactualizable, Hegel goes on to say that the moral subject can only demand or expect happiness as a matter of grace, and not because he would be deserving of it. Also, the criticism and judgment, quote, "the man without morality comes off well," end quote, given out by the Kantian moral subject due to the injustice of his situation, is at bottom an expression of envy, which covers itself up in the cloak of morality. Thus, as a result of these displacements, we see that what really is of ultimate importance for the moral subject is the middle state of incomplete or immorality. In the following, Hegel makes it clear that the subject is not really serious about morality's completion, i.e. the conformity of sensibility to morality and the moral law. Quote, "In truth, morality would really be giving itself up in that completion. That this moral completion, the conformity of sensibility to morality, is not taken seriously, is directly expressed by consciousness itself in the fact that it shifts this completion away into infinity and asserts that the completion is never completed, end quote. Finally, since the result has been arrived at that there is no moral consciousness that is actual, the actual being merely the incomplete or immoral consciousness, if morality is to have any meaning at all, then it must be postulated that morality exists in completed form in a consciousness other than that of the moral subject, namely in that of a wholly moral lawgiver. But now the contradiction implicit in morality becomes evident to moral consciousness itself. For a being or consciousness far removed from actuality and the opposition and struggle between reason and sensibility can in no wise be considered moral. The contradiction lies in the concept of a morality whose essence is to be an opposition that must not remain one, yet at the same time must remain one. This is why the attempts to locate morality within actuality and beyond actuality both have to be unsuccessful. In actuality, we always have a sensibility whose purposes are opposed to morality. Beyond actuality, we are beyond sensibility as well. Hence, without that element vital to the opposition essential to morality. The earth-shattering realization that Hegel is bringing to us in all of this is that there is no such thing as morality, i.e. morality in its Kantian form. Morality, or the moral attitude, did not exist from the start. It was merely an idea, a universal, that demanded its actualization, an actualization which proved to be impossible. What this also means is that the moral view of the world indeed has the universal as pure duty, but not the individual. And this is because it lacks the element of action, for moral action proved impossible. And action is only possible as the action of an individual. As a result, the aspect of recognition by others is also missing. These shortcomings will be made good in conscience, which we now move to.